Undue influence in the context of contested wills is a situation whereby the person who has executed the will has been pressured or forced even to adopt wishes that are not their own. Undue influence occurs in a variety of situations, but typically it's suspected in circumstances where there's been a marked or unexpected change from either a prior will or from what the family expected. That position is often heightened when the person benefiting from that change is somebody who is close to them and within a trusted position, and the person who executed the will is vulnerable. The key difference between undue influence and persuasion is the overriding of the testator's wishes. If that person is being persuaded and they come to a conclusion based on their own considered judgment, they can simply change their mind, and that's perfectly valid. But if, for example, that persuasion creeps over into a situation whereby the person executing the will feels that they have to make that choice, or alternatively they come to think of that viewpoint as their own, then that can often be where undue influence occurs. A typical example of undue influence is where somebody who is vulnerable is taken advantage by somebody close to them, often a very close family member or a carer. If that situation causes a will to be created that is different to what everybody understood and expected, or is markedly different to a prior will, then that can lead to allegations of undue influence, and claims can follow from that. Undue influence is notoriously difficult to prove for two primary reasons. Firstly, the person who can give you the best evidence on it is no longer with us. And secondly, the very nature of undue influence is such that it usually happens behind closed doors. However, what one normally does when trying to prove undue influence is, firstly, understand the position surrounding that particular person. What was their health like? Were they vulnerable? What were their living conditions like? Did they have someone caring from them? Were they dependent upon anybody? You need to establish what that situation was around them in order to establish how free their decision making would have been. Then you look to witness evidence. Who can say what about what happened at the time? Were there any particular instances where people saw the person overpowered by that will of another? And then in addition to that, you're obviously also looking at the will file itself, if it was professionally drawn, or you're investigating the circumstances surrounding the will. I'm not certain that it's possible to completely prevent undue influence, but there are things that you can do to limit it. The people who are normally most concerned about undue influence are not the person creating the will usually, but family members around them that can see what's happening and suspect there might be a problem. For those people, the best advice usually is firstly to document everything as they happen at that time. Secondly, to ensure that, if possible, any will prepared is a will that's professionally drawn. And thirdly, to ensure, if at all possible, to gain access to the person that they're concerned about.